Welcome to Monday Morning Critic Podcast. Here is Derek Thomas.
Bill, get down on the ground! Listen up! Everybody pay attention!
We've got a bank to 11 in progress. Suspects are armed and they have taken hostages.
All units stand down.
You watching?
Yep. How the hell are you going to get out of this?
You know what this is?
It's a decoy. Dealing with a different animal here, boys.
Let's go! Let's go!
Trading up. Los Angeles branch of the Federal Reserve.
Only bank that's never been robbed. That's why we're gonna rob it.
Gangbangers, these are not the National Bank Hollywood job. Laguna Niguel. We nail these guys, we solve all these cases. This is the crew. Let's pay him a visit. Do we look like the types who'll arrest you? We just shoot you. They're addicted to heists. Sooner or later, they'll need their fix.
At the Federal Reserve, billions of dollars are taken out of circulation. If we can break in and steal those old bills before they're destroyed, we got our hands on money that's untraceable.
Every time I'm in the street, I hear ya, 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 ya. Back when I was 9, Joey packed a 9, back a stand on every.
They're casing the joint from the inside. They're going big. Hey, you know what this means? It means I am a member of a gang, only we have badges. You're not the bad guys. We are.
Friday. Make sure he knows it's home.
Well, I'm gonna let you know now.
Better wear your best. Anybody moves, you shoot him. You understand?
You advise suspects wearing body armor, headshots only.
On my signal. Let's go.
I ain't cuffing up.
It's okay. I didn't bring my cuffs anyway.
My next guest is an actor whose filmographies include For Life, Chambers, and the absolutely phenomenally underrated Den of Thieves. His name is Marcus LaVoi. Marcus, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I got to say, man, I've had almost 200 guests. I don't think any of them have had your path. It's, and I say that with the utmost respect and almost amazement, because before we get into the path itself, the fact that you're still here today is pretty much a miracle in itself, right?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It seems like a bunch of lifetimes all crammed into one. So acting seemed like the perfect choice because I could. I've lived a lot of life, and I could probably be anything or do any character that is out there. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's the ultimate experience. I mean, and do you find that early on in your life? I mean, before we get into the acting itself and the path that you have chosen, do you feel like you were in situations that, when you look back, you're still in amazement how you're here today? I mean, just from looking at what you've been through and reading and research, it's almost, I don't want to say miracle, but I feel like that's the only word left to choose from.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, I'm definitely a believer now. In my older years, I've found my way to God. And you know, as you get older, you kind of realize there's a bigger picture here. And I've just found my way to God. And I realize now that there's a purpose for my life. And the purpose has now, you know, it's about others. It's about serving others, and it's about being there for others and sharing your experiences with others so that these people can have hope and benefit other people. So, yeah, I guess the miracle would be a good way to describe I'm still here, still kicking.
Yeah, that's well said. And I have to say, you know, I know your family early on, you had, there was things that many families go through today. And talk to me about the White Earth Indian Reservation, Marcus. What is that? How long were you there for?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I was born there. I'm from White Earth. My mother was adopted, and my father's still back in the reservation in Minnesota. And so I come from Native American parents. They divorced at a young age, and I went with my mother here to California. We started a life here. Well, I lost contact with my dad, for many, many years. And later on in life, my wife hired a private investigator, located him, and we became friends and hit it off. And all those years were kind of restored. So it took me later on in life to kind of learn more about my heritage and my roots and my upbringing because I was distant from them. and didn't really have the availability to learn about my past until I was reunited with my father.
Yeah, and that's an amazing story in itself, Marcus. Marcus, do you find that, because there have been people in your situation where they make contact with a parent later on in life, some people choose the road of anger. Why was that never an option for you? And I'm not assuming that you weren't angry, but, because you hear that story every once in a while, and sometimes people embrace it and, the life is short mentality, but there's also people that say, you know what, screw you for whatever, and I don't know the story in detail, but why not the anger road for you?
Oh no, you're absolutely correct and spot on. I'll take you through it real quick. It was my birthday, and my wife thought this would be a great birthday present. And I came home, and I'm like, hey, let's do something. Are we going to dinner? What's going on? And she laid out all this paperwork in front of me, and she was so excited. And she goes, read it. And I was looking through it. And I'm lost. I'm like, what am I looking at here? And I'm kind of seeing some names, and I'm trying to piece this together. And you're absolutely right. When it hit me, I was so angry. I was like, I'm a grown man now. I don't need him. He wasn't around for me. I don't know anything about my past, my heritage. This man's dead to me. I was so angry. And for 3 days, I stewed in that. And then I reached out to him, kind of to let him have it. And I don't know what happened. It was just this wonderful reunion. And we just talked, and he flew out, and we hung out. And we're best friends now. So, yeah, it was a huge blessing for me. Yeah,
and I think it speaks volumes about you as a person, right? We see this tough guy that's probably seen some things in his life, but he's also, just from talking to you now, I can see you're clearly very articulate, the way you process things. So, yeah, you're definitely in a better place. And how long after that? So you eventually, what makes you decide to go to the Marines? What's the selling point with the Marines for you?
I just was, poor as a child, really had no plan. And I just went off to serve my country, and I wanted to go do great things and be a great person and help others and serve. And then got out of there, went directly into law enforcement. And it's funny because when I got to meet my dad, finally, we got to talking, his journey was the same. A Marine, went into the sheriff's department, like my exact life journey, lived through him, that I just kind of picked it up and I copied it and had no idea that was his journey as well.
For those of us that have not been in the military, how tough is Parris Island?
It's unlike any other thing in the world. It's the top training you can get right there.
Marcus, I'm not going to lie to you. I think I would cry myself to sleep every night if I was ever on Parris Island. And the second part of your career, there's a couple parts here before you get into your wonderful acting career. You work for Department of Corrections.
Yes.
That's the only... I have friends that are in corrections, and I feel like they are mentally they are just so zapped. Like, they have seen everything. To me, it's one of the toughest careers anybody could have. Right?
Because, it's tough.
Because if even if you're a police officer, you see kind of good things every day. Whereas Department of Corrections, I feel like it's just like, okay, every day is the same grind and grind and grind. Was that the toughest part of your law enforcement career?
Absolutely. It was where I first got into law enforcement. Later went into sheriff's department, but it was where I started. And yeah, I got to tell you, it was tough, and it's a very negative environment where you're dealing with, criminals of all backgrounds, and it's a subculture. It's a whole different culture within the prison of a society that most people out in the world don't even know about. There's rules and regulations. They have their own rules and regulations, their own way to live, a code that they live by, and it is literally a dog-eat-dog world. You have to survive in there. Your life is on the line every minute of every day, and it's a tough environment. And as far as like law enforcement goes, you don't have any kind of protection on you. And you're, other than a baton on your side and some pepper spray, and you're walking around on a prison yard where there's 600, 1,000 inmates walking around. At any time, you could be done real quick. So you have to carry yourself with the respect. You have to treat people fairly in there, realize that they're human beings that have made some mistakes, and you have to be hard, but you have to be fair and impartial as well.
See, that's a great point you bring up, because that's the tough part about prisons, right? Because there are good people in jail who made a bad mistake or made a couple bad mistakes, but it just takes that handful that are just born, I guess, of a different cloth, and they don't respect human life. So those are the people, Marcus, I guess, looking at that part of your life that would keep me up at night. So it's amazing that you've done this. I mean, how many years were you in corrections for?
Oh man, I don't know, 8, 10. It's all a blur now. The time frame is the timeline is all messed up. I don't even remember anymore.
So then,
10 years.
Yeah, so that's amazing in itself. And then you cross over, and you're a police officer for the sheriff in San Diego, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's kind of where your acting kind of starts to evolve a little bit, right? And that story is unbelievable. So just share a little bit. You've told this probably a million times, but for those listening who don't know your story, talk about how we get from San Diego Sheriff's Office to actor.
Well, I'm a workaholic. You know, whatever I do, anytime that I commit to something, my life is I'm going to give it 100%, and it goes to anything that I do. So when I was with the department, I had acquired a lot of sick time built up. You know, you get holidays and paid sick time and all this. I never took days off. I was, dedicated, and I was working. And so I started accumulating a lot of sick time on the books. Well, days off, one of the production companies down there, Stu Siegel Productions, turns out that they had security on the set. So I don't remember how that happened, but I got a friend of a friend, and I would sit and do security on the sets out there. Well, they were like, hey, would you like to, do a stand-in scene as a law enforcement officer? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I'd stand there, and then I was doing little day player roles, and it started from there. And then got an agent up in Los Angeles, and I had all the sick time on the books. So I would get an audition up in L.A., lived in San Diego. I would call in sick the next day, drive my pickup truck up to Los Angeles, and find the thing in it. Remember Thomas Guide books? The map book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would find the location because I didn't know LA, so I'd be on Ventura Boulevard, let's just say.
Right.
Find the location, sleep in my truck, wake up the next morning, go to the audition, and then drive back to San Diego later that afternoon. Did that for years pursuing this dream.
And I got to say, when you say years, I mean, some people can do that for a week. I mean, do you ever doubt? I mean, you're a very confident person, it seems like. Does it ever get to a point where you're like, Marcus, what am I doing? Like, this is insane. Or do you view it as, you know what? This is something I really want. I'm going right after it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if I commit to something, I'm all in. And I just always have the mentality that there's no plan B. So I'm going to give it everything I have until I have to do a plan B. So it was... then I moved up here once I resigned from all law enforcement and moved up here. And then, of course, the natural thing to do, because you have to have days open to audition, you have to work nights. So it was the perfect thing to just go into doing security. So I worked at nightclubs and, all kinds of security jobs, working all night and then getting up in the morning again and going to auditions. And that was the grind for the next 10 years.
Oh, my God. Take me through your biggest break, right? So I get when you're telling me, okay, they said, okay, he's a good-looking dude. He's tough. He's rugged. We get it. Let's have him stand in. Let's have him do extra work. Where's the jump come where you go from stand-in to actually having lines in a movie, to actually speaking in a movie? What's the big break there for you, Marcus?
The big break of all was I was doing little guest star roles and day player roles here and there. And then I landed... I did maybe 5-6 episodes on Young and the Restless. So I worked with Eric Braeden on Young and the Restless. And great guy. We hit it off. He's a super fantastic human being. We just hit it off. Tough guys. We love, talking sports and fighting. And he had a Christmas party one year. So he invites me to the Christmas party. I show up with my wife. And I met his son, Christian Gudegast. And again, we hit it off too. So I kind of worked with him on a prison movie he was writing, kind of told him some inside story about how the prisons were. Like I said, we hit it off, became great friends. And then he calls me one day and says, hey, I wrote a movie called Den of Thieves, and I got a part in there for you. You're interested? And there we go. That was it. So all thanks and respect to Eric Braeden and Christian Gudegast.
I got to tell you, that's one hell of a jump, because Den of Thieves, I'm going to get to that in a second. Absolutely phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
Ever a position, Marcus, where you kind of find yourself before Den of Thieves, where you were? I know you commit and you're all in, but do you ever question your abilities as an actor? Right, because a lot of your training is self-defense instructor, Marines. We get all that side of it, but the acting side, did you ever doubt yourself? Because I mean, when I look at acting from the outside, it seems very intimidating, right? You got to be on. You're in front of a camera. People are watching you. How do you get over that? Any doubts of that in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, earlier on going to auditions and being so nervous that, you drop lines, you get in your head, you start questioning yourself. You're viewer viewed, meaning you're looking at yourself from the outside and viewing yourself. And that's a terrible place to be, because now you're going to be critical of where are my hands, how am I standing? You just start going through this checklist, and it's a kiss of death. And I think after time and doing this a while, you just start to learn it's more about the internal, what's going on inside, the emotion behind the words, the scene setup, what's going on in the scene, and what are you trying to accomplish in the scene? And when you can start to focus on those things, it becomes more natural and organic, and that's when you start to create.
That's well said. Is there a person, Marcus, that you credit for helping you get to a mentor or somebody that took you under his or her wing and said, you know what, hey, try this, or is it just a combination of people?
I'm sure it's a combination of people. Like I said, my faith in God gives me internal strength where, I don't fear anything, because if God is with me, who can stand against me, kind of a mentality. And I also want to give credit to a theater company that I joined early on when I was just started, like I said, found my way to God and started going to church. And Trey Fernald at Eastern Sky Theater Company stumbled across me one day. We started talking. I said, yeah, I'm an actor. And he says, well, I run a theater group. And would you like to audition? I said, yeah, sure. And we went on to do numerous plays, live plays all over LA, California. And they were all based on faith, but they were powerful, like real drama that was put into a play format, and we were able to preach gospel through that. And we did some fantastic work. As a matter of fact, the movie was called The Last Appeal. That can be found on the internet, and I think they sell it at Walmart now. And it was about 5 inmates on death row. So the funny part is, I used to be a corrections officer, and now fast forward, and I'm playing inmates on TV shows and theater now. So circle of life.
How tough is theater, man? Because from the outside, it seems like, because if you mess up on TV, a TV show or a movie, you can cut it, you can redo it. Theater's live action. If you mess up, it's there for the world to see.
Right.
Do you feel that pressure as an actor when you did that theater?
Oh yeah, especially when you first start out. You're in front of crowds of anywhere from 100 to 2,000, 3,000, and there's no back to one. If you mess up there, you're in trouble. And I think what got me through that is, if you know the content of what you're up there doing, you just ad-lib. You just kind of like go. If I have drop lines up there, and you're just kind of like, and it goes blank. You're like, oh my God, I have no idea what the next line is. And if you're working with good people, other good stage actors up there, you just kind of what the scene is about. So you just start rambling about something, and then they kind of catch on. Oh, he's lost his place. And they kind of feed you lines, and pretty soon you're back on point again.
Right.
And how you get through that.
Yeah. So I have to say, were you ever doubted? And you don't seem like a guy that's like, aha, in your face, but were you ever doubted by either a former, corrections workers or at the sheriff's department when they found out you really wanted to be an actor? Did any of them kind of laugh off your dream, or kind of like, yeah, right, I'm sure you're going to be a real actor? Yeah, right. Did you ever experience any of that?
I think every one of them. It's so funny because I was resigning and they were like, you're putting in paperwork to resign to move up to Los Angeles to be an actor. Like, the streets are littered with that. Are you kidding me? How do you think you're going to make that? And I wasn't intimidated one bit. I knew what I wanted, and I was going to do whatever it took, So I was going to, again, 100% in. But yeah, every one of them, I'd say, I don't talk to anybody anymore. I don't have connections with anybody down there anymore. It's just kind of like I moved, and I hope they all wish me well. I wish all them well. But yeah, it was like, I think I was doubted by every one of them, because how many people try to do this, No,
and I always wonder, if they ever make a documentary on your life, I always wonder what that scene looks like, when they see you on screen. And I'm not saying, you don't seem like that guy, but that's a good thing. But I want to kind of talk quickly here about Den of Thieves. I have to tell you, Marcus, I don't miss many movies. Somehow this one flew under the radar for me, and when I finally saw it, I gotta tell you, man, I was blown away about how really well done this movie was.
Yeah, it was. and I'm not saying it because I was privileged to be in it. It was fantastic. And Christian, again, man, I love this guy. Christian Gudegas was amazing. He's just an amazing human being, but his abilities and his creativity, and such a great director where he trusts his actors. He knows he's selected well, and he gets this group of people together and let them do their thing, and wasn't very hands-on, just kind of let us create. And he was so open where I'd come up to him and say, hey, let's try, or could we try such and such? And he'd be like, all for it. Yep, let's do it. Let's shoot it. And when you get an environment like that where you're able to create and bring your characters to life, it's a recipe for success. And you had all these guys out there. We filmed it in Atlanta. And you have all these macho guy types out there. And we all hung out. We had dinner together because we were away from our respective families out there. And all this testosterone in the room, and there was never a problem. Everybody, we came together as a family, and we just, knocked it out of the park. I wish I had more scenes in it. It was that we had cut a few, but it was a fantastic experience.
Now, do you ever, are you a person, and I think I know the answer, but do you learn from other actors by watching them? Because this movie is filled with a phenomenal cast. Gerard Butler, Pablo Schreiber, who's so underrated, O'Shea Jackson.
Oh my God, yeah.
50 Cent, you've done a few projects with him. So talk a little about that, about, learning from other actors. And I mean, that's got to be the biggest education,
Oh yeah, it is. It is. And such is life. You target people who are doing something that you want to do and is important to you, and you study that craft. And yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely correct. I mean, to just be in an environment where I was a nobody actor and I'm working with Gerard Butler and Pablo and 50 and it was literally a dream come true.
Yeah.
And everybody was so respectful and helpful, and man, it was a great experience.
No, and for those listening, I mean, I kept looking to my fiance, and I'm like, how did I miss this movie? How did this get? Because I'm watching it, and I'm like, what a phenomenal idea of a group of police officers that are 100 times more badass than the guys they're going after, right?
Yeah,
they're no nonsense. And the movie just works start to finish. By the way, those of you listening, it's available currently on Netflix. But I got to say, what a phenomenal idea, right, Marcus? Just that's a great concept.
Yeah, and it was gritty and real, and in real life, I mean, you get some of these veteran detectives, and the only way that you can really understand the criminal element is to kind of think like them and kind of act like them and be like them and fit in like them, because in that environment is where you're going to learn the most. And they kind of took that to the next degree. But yeah, it was a fantastic idea, and the writing was just, wow, he's an amazing writer.
Yeah, and I have to say, this is what you do as well. When I look at Butler or, Jonathan Banks from Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Nick Nolte, you guys have a good way of wearing, this is going to sound cheesy the way I say it, but wearing your pain. You look at they don't even have to say a word, but by their faces, their mannerisms, it's just great acting without saying a word. I believe you have that too, and that's tough. That's tough to learn, I think, Marcus.
Yeah, I think like I said, when you can start to take on that character and be that character, and you kind of wear his outer layer, and you got to, when I prepare for a role, I do some serious background work on it. Like, I don't just say, let's take Chambers and Big Frank.
Mm-hmm.
I studied that character. I made his whole background. I went through his childhood, his upbringing, his schooling, his favorite color, his likes, his dislikes. I mean, I did a whole character breakdown on him. And when I went out to Albuquerque to film that, I became that. I wasn't acting, I was being. It was who I was. I was Big Frank. And when you can start to wear that outer layer, and that's who you are, and the personification of who you are comes through like that, that's when you really can start, when you're truly acting.
Yeah, and I have to say thank you for bringing up Chambers, because that is such a unique premise. You are so good in that. It's just such a unique concept. You don't see much things that are that original outside the box. I loved it, and it's amazing to hear from your end how much study really goes into a character.
Yeah, that's where the real work is. It's not about studying lines. Lines get dropped, lines get cut, lines come and they go. It's what does the scene need? What are you trying to accomplish in each scene? What is the root of the scene? And how do you make that come to life, and what's going on inside? And I think that's when you're really, like I said, you keep using the word, but when you're really creating, that's when you're creating.
Is there a genre you haven't done, Marcus, that you want to try, whether it's comedy or, I don't want to say horror because there's elements of a little bit of that in some of your work, but is there anything that you really are ready to really dive into, or is it, you know what, bring anything on, I'll take any of it?
Yeah, I mean, I want to try anything because there's growth in all of it. Comedy is an area I haven't really worked with, but I mean, I've seen some of these other actors, The Rock, what's the guy from, what's the wrestler guy? God, this new one he's a comedy. He does comedy now. He's great.
Batista.
Yeah, Batista. Yeah. And here's a big guy who's kind of, rough around the edges, and he's hilarious. And I don't quite learned how to do that yet. I don't know how to. That's something I'm working on, comedy. So that would be a very far stretch, but I'll tackle it. Sure, I'd love to try it. But ideally, yeah, I want to do roles where, I can show some chops. I can show what's going on inside. Like Big Frank is a great example. I'm currently on a project, again, working with 50 called For Life on ABC. We finished our first season playing an inmate, a convict on there. And yeah, he's got a wife who just died of cancer. He's got a lot going on inside too. So perfect role for me where I can just kind of play some of those emotions and walk through that. I lost my mom to cancer years ago, so I know how all that looks. So to be able to portray that and use that as a gift, to others and to the world, man, that's where I'm happiest.
That's so well said. Digging deep. Was that a coincidence that you and 50 ended up on the same project again, or was he just so enamored with your performance in Den of Thieves he brought you with him?
I wish that was the case. I wish you could say, "Wow, I got to get this guy with him again." I don't think he's a mega superstar. I don't think that was a forethought of his, but it's a nice thought. No, it probably was a coincidence. Julie Schubert did the casting out of New York, and she's fantastic. And she watched Chambers and booked me right off that. So that was fantastic. And I mean, thank you again to her. But yeah, I was sitting in the makeup trailer one morning getting ready, and I hear 50's voice. And I hadn't seen him since Den of Thieves. So what has it been? Maybe 3 years? I don't know. And he looks over and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And so, yeah, I don't think he had anything to do with hiring me, but it was great seeing him, and we hit it off, and it was good seeing him again. So,
yeah, and I
great working with him.
Yeah, I had a guest on, I want to say 6 months ago. He was in The Mandalorian. He had a huge part. He was the heavy Mando, and he reminds me very much of your career. You guys are very eerily similar of how that works, but I would love to see you in the Star Wars universe. That would be excellent.
Oh my God, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, Marvel. I would love to do Marvel films, Star Wars films. Yeah, and anything. My dream right now. Well, I'm still, I guess, in decent shape. I want to play some role where I'm on some ancient battlefield swinging an axe in some mega battle scene. I would just love that. I still am holding some muscle mass because who knows how long,
Yeah, well, I have to say, it's funny that you say it because it was just the 25th anniversary of Braveheart, so that would have been a great... Yeah, let me ask you, I got two more quick questions for you. One is, what are the movies that, growing up, that you really kind of... because this acting thing didn't just come overnight, right? Anybody that's listening to this, they know that you've really loved acting for a long time. You've had other jobs, but it's clearly been on the forefront for you for a while. What are the movies and or actors that, growing up, you're like, damn, that's what I want to do?
Well, yeah, you mentioned Braveheart. Mel Gibson is, obviously one of the top guys around. That's been one of my all-time favorites. I love Dances with Wolves, because my Native American background, that was just something I've probably seen 100 times. I love that film. What's the other one here? What's the Gladiator? There's another one. You got to put Gladiator in there. So, yeah, those are probably my top 3 films that are kind of epic that I've watched over and over again and studied the craft of these superstars. And, yeah, they're all-time favorites up there right there.
I have to toot my own horn. I had Tantu Cardinal, great Native American actress who was in Dances with Wolves and these other movies. So representing. Is there anything, I know you mentioned For Life. Is there anything else you wanted to get out there, Marcus? Any future projects, maybe some social media stuff? Get something out there for people to hear?
Yeah, that'd be great. If you follow Marcus LaVoi on Instagram, just kind of that's where I note anything going on in my career right now. Obviously, with this coronavirus and this horrible pandemic we're all dealing with, everything has kind of grinded to a halt here, but I'm confident and I'm prayerful that this too shall pass, and the world can get back to living life again. Put some, implement some procedures to, be safe. But I think we're all ready to get back to work and start living life again. And I think that when this happens in the very near future here, I'm believing that production companies all over the world are going to be so hungry to work again that it's going to be a good time for actors, writers, producers, directors. We're all going to get back to work, and I'm believing we're going to do some fantastic work here in the future.
Marcus LaVoi, you're a good man. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. You be blessed. Thank you, brother.